Welcome into the latest episode of the Formula One podcast on the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner, joined by Angel, or at Roscoe Poop Scoop on Twitter. If you want to get in touch with any of the podcasts, please do so. We are on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and of course, YouTube as well, at the real underscore G Warner on YouTube, on Instagram. If for the 1 minute capture video that gives us our best bets, which will be coming end of show. This episode, we will be talking about the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and we will also be going through what the heck happened in Catalonia in the Spanish Grand Prix fairly recently. At Roscoe Poop how are you doing on this beautiful, I guess, Saturday morning?
It's good. I'm doing great. I'm excited for the race weekend. Another one coming. It was a nice break between Spanish Grand Prix and Canada. But
Yeah, nice
I actually
break.
have a friend there right now. He's been texting me like, okay, these are all the views. So I'm excited to get live stream from there as well.
Great. Yeah, one of my friends went to the Monaco Grand Prix, and I understand you're not saying this, but it's probably a good break to get away from me for 2 weeks. So we're back, and we're gonna go through, I guess, what happened in Spain. So Oscar Piastri, a winner in a McLaren hat, has now adorned my co-host on this episode. Lando Norris finishing second, another McLaren. Then Charles Leclerc in third. As my phone rings, I'm clearly an amateur. George Russell then also came in fourth, Nico Hulkenberg in fifth, and one thing that seems to always occur, Isaac Hadjar finishing top 10 as he finished seventh in this race. So I'm pretty impressed on what he's done so far this season. Do you want to give us a little bit of I guess it also was my pick for top 10 best bet. So keep that in mind. And I think I've done it 3 times in a row with Isaac Hadjar. And foreshadowing, you might see that again. What do you think about the race? What do you think about Isaac Hadjar first?
Yeah, I mean, everybody at this point cannot deny his consistency, right? I think yeah, you've been benefiting from that for sure. And I think everybody just after all the ten races of this season, people start recognizing that is a rookie of the year. And I think every season towards the end when they gave sort of the trophy award for the champion, they also recognize the rookie of the year. So I wouldn't be surprised he even get the rookie of the year award towards the end of the season.
Great.
Very consistent. Racing ball again is very a lot. I think a lot of people saying racing ball is a lot easier to drive than like Red Bull. Red Bull, like you can see Yuki when he was in racing ball, he consistently go potentially top 10 in quality or result wise, but now he's in Red Bull, which is a better car, a promotion, but not necessarily give him the results he want because it's just a little bit difficult car to drive, which is very much tailored to Max Verstappen driving style. So I think there's also elements of the car itself just improving and the more stable and the easier to drive in
So
that
what
midfield.
I think so. Thank you for touching on that. Selfishly, I always like to hear some Isaac Hadjar talk. I am curious though for you to tell me what the heck happened to Max Verstappen finishing in 10th. I think that's the lowest finish of his season.
Yes, and that was actually my bet, right? Going into Spanish Grand Prix,
I didn't
that
want to bring it up, but
I know,
it is
I
it is good
appreciate
for the
that.
sake of the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. We are as transparent as we can be. And yeah, what the heck? 10th place for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I think um it is his track and he's been like historically so phenomenal on that track. And I think going into the race weekend, he's also favored. Obviously, Oscar Piastri got the pole, and there's always that easier sort of a translation between a pole position to sort of the race winner in some of these tracks. So like I think from that, but even though looking at Max, I think he quality second or third, it's not too far from the top. And I think the way Spanish Grand Prix the track is set up is they have a pretty long straight going into the first turn. That gives a lot of opportunity for overtakes set up for the overtakes in before the first turn, right? So That's also where I guess my analysis went into it. Even if Max Verstappen doesn't qualify the top, like got the pole setter, he still have a chance to overtake, which I think he actually got second position from the beginning. Wherever he started, I can't remember exactly. But regardless, he drove a pretty great race throughout, like for the 50 out of the 60 something laps. Um, Again, that's like we are talking about 80-90% of the race. He was like in the second and trying to go for the first. I do think a Spanish Grand Prix, like everybody get your shot ready, but it is a really high tire degradation
Degradation.
racetrack. So there's just a lot of tire management went into it, right? So that being said, I think Max Verstappen went for a three-stop strategy, while everyone else went to a two-stop. So again, whenever you pit one more stop, you lose 20 seconds, right? So he went three, and he still went come back out of the third sort of pit stop and being in second, which is amazing because you basically, if you had only pitted twice, and you would be leading the race like probably 18 seconds ahead of the second one. But it wasn't his day, and there was I think a safety car came out of pretty late that gave everybody the opportunity to pit again at a only 10 seconds sort of a time difference, right? That just kind of gave away pit stop to everybody else. So he didn't really benefit from his third pit stop. And then when he went for the fourth pit stop, he didn't really have all the tires he likes. He had to go on a hard tire. And when everybody else was on medium and soft, he just kind of lost it at that moment.
So it looks like he finished 21.826 seconds behind the winner, Oscar Piastri. And it
Yep.
seems like strategy was not probably perfect. And it sounds like a little bit of bad luck, depending when a safety car
Yeah.
comes out as well.
And And then like there's obviously, I mean, if anybody knows Max Verstappen, he doesn't have the best temper on the track. He doesn't have, like, he's not the most friendly driver, which is also why he's been winning for the past few years, right? Very aggressive. So when he came out at a very disadvantage of the tire, Leclerc started passing him because again, Leclerc actually sacrificed his qualification to save up a soft tire and a medium tire so he can benefit and use that in the actual race. So that truly played out in Leclerc's favor. So he overtook Max Verstappen, and then he started realizing, like, lost his sort of temper and patience. That's where Max start getting frustrated with a tire. And then um, again, I there's a lot of drama and controversial between him and George Russell, how it played out towards the end. I don't think Max engineer should have let him give the position back to George Russell, but he did, which he wasn't happy and led to him run into George. Medium and FIA all think it was an intention move. Regardless, we don't know, but he admitted, right? End of the day, he got 10-second penalty, and that's
Mm.
really why he dropped from I think a fourth or fifth to all the way end. Otherwise, he probably would finish behind Leclerc and the George Russell, but still, it's very unlucky. Like the safety car came out and he doesn't have tire, and things start going south from there.
So it does to confirm the qualification. It was Oscar Piastri on the pole, followed by Lando, and then next and third place was Max Verstappen. So it seems like
Yeah.
things started well. some discipline issues, maybe some strategy issues. I'm also
Yeah.
curious about, as we'll get to listener comments a little bit later in the show. Thank you, Joe Dollar, for sending them in. If you want to, of course, chat with Roscoe Poop Scoop all over Twitter, if you'd like to, about F1 specifically. If you want to slide in my DMs, they're always open at the real underscore G Warner across any social media platform. From the do not finishes, I see a pretty popular name on there. We talk about a lot in Kimi Antonelli, also Albon and Stroll as well. So Joe loves mentioning the classifieds and the do not finishes and trying to really
Yeah.
take the big long odds. So it seemed like that worked fairly well in Spain. Could, I feel like we've seen a lot of inconsistency from Kimi Antonelli, just considering how much we
Yeah.
speak about him.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because well, obviously Imola was a big weekend for all the upgrades across all the constructors. I guess Mercedes upgrades just didn't work well at Imola, and I actually don't know if Kimi went for the upgrade. Oh, they both went for the upgrades, and it didn't work well because of setup. So they revert back to the old specs, and that didn't play in their favor in Monaco. And then coming to Spanish again, Spanish Grand Prix is actually one of those like temperature being very hot, right? Like the temperature evolution throughout the day actually plays a huge. That's why led to all the tire management and all the team strategy. So that being said, for some reason, Mercedes it just doesn't work well in a hot temperature, and which I'm foreshadowing a little bit for when we come into Canadian Grand Prix a little. But that temperature, like, so William using Mercedes engine, right? That's they also had a DNF, and Kami obviously is also on Mercedes engine and power unit. So both of the two out of the three actually were running on Mercedes engine, and I think there is a little bit correlation to how Mercedes as an engine supplier and the power unit supplier like just doesn't fit well in the hot temperature. I don't they never figured out why for the past few years, but it's kind of like the unknown facts there to consider.
Interesting, especially, I mean, I guess every time I've been to Germany, it's been pretty dark, dreary, and pretty cold. So I could see that certainly being the way. We'll move now over, unless you have anything else you want to get off your chest about the Spanish Grand Prix to Canada. So holding this race in Montreal, Quebec, and the interesting to me is if the heat is going to be an issue, like we're going through the summer and a lot of the world right now. So I imagine that's almost something to potentially look to play against Mercedes and those teams that are using Mercedes engines. But I guess we'll get to that a little bit later. Can you, at Roscoe Poop Scoop on Twitter, could you give me an idea of how you see the Canadian Grand Prix in Quebec, Montreal, Quebec, that is, at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve? How do you see that comparing to the Spanish Grand Prix and potentially any other races that are very similar to it that we've already seen?
Yeah, so just speaking, continue that temperature conversation, right? And which is, I was foreshadowing a little bit. Canada is actually, well, being in North Montreal, being north of United States. So right now, even though I think it's like around 20 Celsius or 60 or 70 like Fahrenheit, so it's pretty nice weather there, right? It's not actually too hot as when we compare to the Spanish Grand Prix.
Okay.
So that being said, it is a cooler condition.
So let
So
me tell
I
you
would
this. Let me
actually,
tell you this, as I do love checking the weather. It looks like Barcelona's high today is 83. So Catalonia in Spain, and actually, Quebec, Montreal, Canada, that matches the high of 83 as well.
okay,
It might be because it looks like they're. If we're really going deep into the weather here, but it does seem like it's mostly cloudy with a chance of rain in Barcelona. Excuse me, 0% chance of rain, but it's mostly cloudy, so that might have made it a little
yeah,
bit cooler. But yeah, I mean, definitely Canada, one of the colder places in this world. But ultimately, in
yeah,
the summertime, I feel like there's a reason why all those Canadians up there get those big sunburns because they're not used to it, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out.
that's funny.
So I guess to that end, it probably, I mean, temperatures are going to be what they are wherever they are, and I just am kind of amazed that someone so sophisticated like a Mercedes team that has some of the like highest expected finishers would struggle with that type of thing. But we've seen a lot of different changes throughout the race calendar this year with the
Yeah.
Ferrari team that struggled with, I think, the height of their car in one of the races. So
Hmm.
like it seems like there's just a lot of variables, and that's why you come to the Betting the Pitch Formula One podcast every week. So, okay, so give me a little bit more on Montreal and how it compares to Spain, and
Yep.
then potentially other races that we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, so again, I know the weather says differently. The track temperature is a little bit different, like being close to the wa water. Like it's actually the track is quite interesting. I do want to check out the Montreal race in person one day. It's on an island, right? It's surrounded by water, so it's transportation wise, you can leverage public transportation. So shout out to the Canadian like public transportation system, I guess, better than the US, but. Um,
Probably a lot more advanced than what we have in
yeah.
a lot of the U.S. Definitely, and
So
specifically in Dallas as well.
yeah, I think that kind of translate into the free practice a little. You see George Russell being like just in Mercedes and Kimi and even the William drivers, right? Like they've been going up like because cooler condition. And the other thing is Canada Grand Prix track is also very different from Spanish, right? Spanish had a lot like mixed corners, so it was just a lot of the aerodynamic and the high sort of downforce requirement for the Grand Prix in Spain and Barcelona. But here it's quite contrary. Here on in Canadian Grand Prix, it's all about the long straight lines and actually low speed corners. So you actually require a lot of low downforce setup. So it's a little bit different from like Spanish. So that being said, when it comes to long straight, it's all about your top speeds and just like your engine mode. And
To me,
I
that's
think,
where it sounds like most of the passing will come in those long straightaways, right?
yep. Yeah, so I think a turn is where the hairpin is. Like you come down to the long straight and go through a slow corner. But that's where I think the engine mode comes to play. Again, I'm like highlighting a lot of engine this weekend. McLaren, Mercedes, and William, they all run on the Mercedes engine, AMG engine, and so. I think you see that in George Russell's performance, and you see some in the William driver's performance in the free practice. For some reason, McLaren didn't really come too strong in the free practice results, but I think again, like that's probably they're just playing around some setup test runs.
Yes, you have been consistent that they have the best car. So good the car is that you're wearing the hat today. So we do have some listener comments to get to. Feel free to send those through if you'd like to. But before we get there, I just want to give a state of the marketplace. And so it looks like Oscar Piastri favored to win this race plus 175, Lando Norris plus 200 or 2 to 1 odds, Max Verstappen 325. George Russell 7 to 1, and Kimi Antonelli, despite not finishing last week, 40 to 1. So it feels like there's always some respect for Kimi to win this race in the marketplace, though I certainly haven't seen it so far this year. I'm not sure anyone else has either as well. Um, Other notables, just because I gotta give him his props. Of course, Isaac Hadjar, 2,500, I guess 25,000, so 250 to 1 odds to win the race. I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying that. So give me a little bit more, I guess potentially how you'd compare the Canadian race to other races earlier in this, because I know we've had some big similarities with like Japan being very like much like the Imola track, if I remember correctly, and things like that.
Mhm.
Are there any that you could draw some parallels to? I guess I don't know of many island tracks. Monaco, of course, very close to the water, but it is, I guess, at best a peninsula because it's pretty much all attached. And I'm looking at the map here. Yes, right above, actually, some family of mine in Vermont is an island
Nice.
track apparently. So that seems different. Maybe it's completely its own thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think close to water, that's where like you kind of mentioned earlier, there could always be the rain possibility, and it seems pretty cloudy over Saturday or Sunday. So that being said, I think whenever there's rain coming, like we know we know there's the one driver that always exceed in the ring with his sort of amazing and phenomenal sort of talent. That's Max Verstappen,
And
right?
he's probably pretty motivated after a 10th place finish. Maybe we see a great performance from him. So I'll get into some comments here because
Yeah.
you're definitely referencing what Joe sent through at Joe Dollar on Twitter. He said Canadian Grand Prix is a high variance race based on the weather. Rain seems to always show up out of the blue. Currently on Sunday, we have a 0% chance of rain, but we'll see what happens. Weather forecasts do certainly change. If you follow the Major League Baseball podcast, which is not currently on the Betting Pitch Podcast Network at this point, as my co-host decided to take a bit of a sabbatical from his baseball following. But we do talk about baseball weather a lot and how that impacts the flight of a ball. It's a little bit different with the driving of a car on a street on the ground, but still, clearly weather matters. And it does seem to me, like as you just mentioned, Max Verstappen looks pretty good in any sort of based on a driver type of race, and certainly weather impacts can make that a bit more important to be which type of driver you are. Joe had said this earlier in the week, but currently seeing about 15% to 20% chance of rain on Sunday. I would expect that to be a factor. So it seems like, and part of if you're making any bets in this world, all there's so many things that can impact how a race finishes and such. So
Yeah.
you might want to always be checking that weather app or something like that. I don't have one to plug here, unfortunately, but so no rain versus rain. It seems like in the rain, you're more interested in Max Verstappen, or at least you have it increases your interest level. No rain, is it pretty much then more about the car and kind of the standard setup? Is that what you'd say?
Yeah, and the other thing is, for sure, if there's no rain, it's more about I would say like who has a better car, who has a better engine mode, and I do think just historically looking at the performance, like pole setter in the Canadian GP does have a higher chance. Well, I guess that applies to everywhere, every race, but Canadian like the conversion between a pole setter to race one is actually pretty high. So again, if anyone is still looking out for like waiting for placing the bets after the qualification this afternoon, like you can potentially just wait, check out whoever is a pole setter that give you a little bit indication on the race winner tomorrow as well. I think that's the other thing to look at.
Sure, and definitely will impact your Formula One fantasy lineups if you are playing. So Joe mentioned Max to win the race plus 400. It's certainly come down a little bit since then. I think maybe others are believers of what your line of thinking was, that maybe a motivated Max Verstappen is a scary one for the rest of the community, down to plus 325 at current odds. Isaac Hadjar top 10 minus 120s in auto play as well. Hadjar top 6 plus 600s at 6 to 1 odds is also a consideration. Well, I'm happy to tell you, Joe, that there's actually been some money coming back on the I guess my favorite driver. I think it's not even close at this point. I'm actually seeing some plus money on Hadjar currently, so that's kind of where he's been priced for a while. And I think we've already probably talked more Isaac Hadjar than we have on any podcast so far of this season. But I got to say, a top six finish feels a little bit like a stretch. 8 to 1 odds now currently. Top 10 though, currently plus 110. So you get paid a little
Oh,
bit to
okay.
take your bet if you're interested in that sort of thing, which I certainly am. Moving next, of course, to the classified finishers market. I feel like that is
Yeah.
a constant topic on this show. It would have worked very well as three drivers did not finish the Spanish Catalonian Grand Prix. It looks like, as in pure Joe Dollar fashion, the market I want to attack most is the classified finishers market. Last 3 years have seen an average of 16.67 drivers classified. I'll put 2 units bet on under 18 and a half, so that means two non-finishers, minus 135, so paying a little juice there. Half unit on under 17 and a half plus 250, and a quarter unit on under 16 and a half plus 900. So, and I guess along those lines, red flag, yes, plus 350 is also consideration. So where do you feel? I mean, certainly with rain, I expect that to be a little bit more difficult of a course, and that certainly could have maybe been some of the reasoning behind Joe's lean so far, or potentially bets that he already put in. What do you think about the classified market and classified finishers, excuse me, or those that will not qualify
Yeah.
in this type of race?
No, I think I was actually well, obviously, I was doing my research on all the bets and the race specials this weekend. I do think I'm with him on the classified markets as well, right? And again, like he's also spot on some of the historical data points. Like Canada always have a few car that DNFs in the Canadian Grand Prix. Um, and I think just also going back to the track itself, it's quite long straight line, high speed coming down to the hairpin, which actually quite sharp of a hairpin, require a little bit low speed. So when you switch and the stop and go sort of a situation, it does require a lot more sort of a driver ability as well, right? So I think that just give a little bit a higher chance to for some mistakes by some drivers. So I'm with him on all of this class five finish market, under 18.5 and even under like 17.5. Um 16.5 is a stretch, but like statistically, like he said 16.67 didn't like they classify, right? So it's pretty close to the 16.5. And it's plus 90. It seems quite valuable.
Yeah, I think that's probably a long shot. Joe just rooting
Yeah,
for mass carnage on the raceway apparently this
yeah.
weekend. Okay, so I think we can probably move towards the best bet portion of the show. Of course, any of you that have want to get this in your podcast feed as soon as it comes out, as we have been a little bit diverse in our recording times. Apologies, started a new job this week, and the commute is killing me. But I think so. Check that out. Betting the Pitch podcast on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You can search at the real underscore G Warner on YouTube and of course on Instagram for these 1 minute reels. Plus, you get the full episode on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner. Of course, check out Roscoe Poopscoop on Twitter if you want to interact. Probably more F1 discussion going on from the I guess the device that picks up. And we haven't mentioned Lewis Hamilton so far. We might as well say just
Yeah.
since he's like responsible for the Twitter handle. What are we thinking about Lewis Hamilton so far this season? I'll give you his odds to win this race. Currently 33 to 1 odds, gives it about a 3% chance. And he's kind of hanging around, but not really impressing too much, I don't think, so far. I guess in the last few minutes, we'll give him a little bit of a mention. Finishing sixth position in the Spanish Grand Prix. Where are we at with, are we going to change the Twitter handle?
Never. Um,
Never.
when you actually like a driver, it's not about, I guess, you always want them to deliver better results, but it's more than that, right?
That's right. So there's no fair weather poop scoop on on this
Yeah,
podcast. We are fair. We are aware of that. She's a Lewis Hamilton fan through and through, and I think it also makes it a little bit easier if you don't have a real dog in the race. Yes, I guess finishing sixth still means he's up there, but I just don't think
yeah,
we've talked about Lewis Hamilton much this year as
yeah.
a potential winner.
I love talking about that because Canada Grand Prix was his actually maiden win. Like when he come into like he started racing in F1 2007, and
Okay.
that's 18 years ago. So 18 seasons, and his performance at there are a couple racetrack like even Silverstone. There's a straight line called a Hamilton Straight. That's part of the racetrack in Silverstone. He's been so consistent out there. Canada is another racetrack. He's always just outperform sort of the markets in a way. Um, so I definitely, I mean, I was even checking out the race matchup, right, between Lewis Hamilton and Leclerc. I think that's one area to look at. Obviously, like from current race results so far, based on this season, Leclerc is favored. I mean, in overall, just like the championship points and
And
everything.
and in their personal matchup, Charles Leclerc against Lewis Hamilton. Currently, Leclerc minus 200, so 1 to 2 odds to defeat Hamilton, and plus 153 on the Lewis Hamilton side. So, I mean, if you do like that, potentially Lewis Hamilton wakes up from the dead or something like that. I guess that's not fair. I'm not. He's not dead, but he just hasn't really been in discussion. Whereas Leclerc was so good at Monaco, which makes it a little bit hard for me to see a big change. But you said it. Some drivers fare well in certain places, and certainly good history is important.
Yeah, and I mean Leclerc even crashed in the free practice one, like he didn't even participate in free practice two. So I mean, I just based on some of these data points, he didn't really have much time to gain some experience on the track and collect the data and analyze his own like sort of stuff. Like the team, his side of the garage has to rely on Hamilton's like free practice data points, right, to determine the strategy and everything. But all that said, I think that's definitely I mean I think Hamilton has a chance to outperform Leclerc.
And it sounds like the market too, as well. Okay, so let's get into our best bets. I feel like I've just been riding a certain train or a certain racing bull, I guess, on my way through this late portion of these episodes. We do have more, I guess, from recording a little bit later this week. We do have race matchups for Piastri versus the field, Norris versus the field, Verstappen versus the field. Then we have the individuals like Oscar Piastri against Lando Norris. Piastri favored to win the race, slight favorite there as well. Of course, we have everything on the board. If you want to go to the classified markets, that's available too. We've talked about that ad nauseum at this point, probably, but there's plenty out there. Plus the top tens, top sixes, and potential winners. So there's been a lot of Max Verstappen talk so far. We do not discuss this before the show, so I'm not sure exactly where at Roscoe Poopscoop on Twitter will go. But Angel, if you're ready to go, I'm ready to listen to where you're going to pick and put your name on the line for this Montreal, the Canadian Grand Prix of the Formula One.
So I'm debating. I have like about three or four consideration.
Okay, well, let's work it
Uh,
out. We got some time.
yeah. So I mean, we talk about Mercedes as a car, right? And so I think one thing to look out is actually Mercedes both driver finished top six.
Ooh,
Um,
okay. Which is quite a statement considering how things went
yeah.
just fairly recently with Kimi Antonelli not finishing a race. We had some problems with that. Both cars have finished top six, Mercedes plus 125. So if you're winning that bet, oh my gosh, and we have a costume change. Here we go. If you're watching live, we are now into the Mercedes portion of the show and a nice purple as well.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing to look out. But then obviously, Kimi hasn't been that consistent, right? That's one thing. So then, if we want to be a little bit safer on that end, on the Mercedes side of the garage, I think George Russell top three is also another consideration.
Okay, I'll give you
Um,
that number. Currently minus 125, so right about natural odds for someone. I think the biggest issue is he's got to finish ahead of one of Piastri, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen, all much more likely, according to the marketplace, to win the race.
I see. Yeah, but at some point earlier this week, I even see he was like plus 150 or
So
something in
there's
top.
been some money
Yeah,
coming in on
yeah,
George Russell,
yeah,
and
for
that's
sure. So
one of the
yeah,
best parts of our game is not only do you have to pick what's going to happen, but you have to also watch the stock marketplace of kind of how this all is listed and how these things change. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are looking at this. And as the efficient market hypothesis says, usually following the money is the best way to go. So I guess so that's an option as well. And I guess means we might need to record a little bit earlier next week so we get the earliest prices before
yeah.
they get beat into submission after everyone's been paying attention for the whole week. Give me some more.
Yeah, Hamilton, we talk about that. Hamilton over Leclerc because even though the market is favoring Leclerc to be outperforming Hamilton, I do think Hamilton has a pretty decent chance. So to me, that's actually a value bet.
Yeah, so that plus 153. For the most part, my general strategy, if you listen to any of my podcasts or anything that I do, is I like the plus monies, and ultimately everything to me is somewhat close to a coin flip. So playing those and kind of exploiting those edges over the long term, I think, is the best way to try to find your way into positive expected value wagers or investments. So I think it's time to make a pick here now, Angel.
Yep.
Unless you have anything you'd like me to I guess, research or grab you prices on. Do you want to pick one of those? I feel like based on the hat you're wearing, you might be indicating where you're going to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Joe is spot on around the classified market as well. So I think there's just a lot more option to think about for this race, and I don't know how exactly betting works. Like at this point, we I should probably know more 10 episodes into the season, but um. I guess like you could also just play a little bit on top of each other the bets like Mercedes and George and because they're very kind of different and special so
Yes, you are
that's
not
also
restricted to making only one wager in real life,
yeah,
but on
yeah,
this
but those
episode
are
we
definitely
are.
those are definitely good consideration since I can't really I'm still making up my mind in which is my ultimate bet.
Okay. Okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
I know where
let's
I'm gonna
go.
go. I know where I'm gonna
Yeah,
go. If you want to go, I'm ready for you.
okay, let's go.
Let's go. Okay. For mine, I'm certainly picking Isaac Hadjar to finish top 10. I think that's what everyone knew, and you can join me on that if you like it too. But I'm simply not. If it ain't broke, they say don't fix it. So I'm not fixing it. I'm staying with Isaac Hadjar, and I might have to get a poster on this wall behind me or something like that as we move forward.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for my bet, I guess I'm gonna go with George Russell finish top three.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think while we have a minute left, that's usually my cutoff. So let's get in and record this. Hey, this is real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet portion of the Betting the Pitch Formula One podcast. You heard my co-host Roscoe Poops Coops. She just gave you George Russell to finish top three. A little bit of a surprise, but she is wearing her Mercedes purple hat, and she's got a minus 125 on George Russell. I will take the plus 110 Isaac Hadjar to finish top 10. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. He's been great. The car is clearly not broken, and Isaac Hadjar has been leading us to the top 10 for weeks and weeks and weeks now. So I'm not changing it. Maybe it's a bad race. He doesn't deserve it, but maybe it's the time. But I'm still believing in Isaac Hadjar finishing top 10 until he stops. So that'll be it, I guess, for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back. We'll try to announce the time when we're recording for our next episode. But thanks for coming in, and we'll see you the next Betting the Pitch Formula One edition as we then take a look into a very far away land in the Austrian Grand Prix on our next episode. Angel, thanks for coming in, and we'll see you all next time.
Sounds good. Have a good one, y'all.